CQ RAYNET, CQ RAYNET. This is Golf 4, November Romeo Charlie, operated today by Greg, Golf 0 Delta Uniform Bravo, serving as net control for the RAYNET-UK weekly activity net. This net meets each Sunday afternoon at 1600 hours local time and is open to all amateur radio operators interested in emergency communications. The primary purpose of the net is to provide the opportunity for members to test equipment, exchange traffic, news, opinions and information, and additional information can be found on the RAYNET-UK website, which is at www.raynet-uk.net. This is a directed net, which means all calls are to be made to the net control station unless you're instructed otherwise, and all RAYNET-UK operators are invited and encouraged to check into the net. When you do check in, please announce your call sign slowly and phonetically, followed by your name and whether or not you have any traffic for the net. If you wish to leave the net immediately after checking in, then please call in and out. Otherwise, after I've heard a few call signs, I will review how I've heard. If you're not acknowledged, please do try again, and I will call for strays at the end of the structured check-in. So if you want to leave at any point during the net, please make it clear you wish to leave at that time. So I'll now begin taking check-ins to the RAYNET-UK weekly activity net on 23531 and 5023531, as usual in call sign number order, starting with stations with figure 8 and their call sign wishing to check in. Please call now. This is G4 NRC.
Golf 8 Kilo Lima Charlie. Afternoon, Greg. Golf 8 Echo Yankee. Name is Mike. Good afternoon, Greg.
G4 NRC's got Phil, Golf 8 Kilo Lima Charlie, and Mike, Golf 8 Echo Yankee. Any other 8s, please? G4 NRC, over. G4 NRC, no more 8s. We'll go for 7s. Stations figure 7 and their call sign. Please go ahead now. G4 NRC, over.
Golf 7 November Echo Hotel G, Sapton-H.
Mike 7 Alpha Victor Oscar.
G4 NRC's got Graham, Golf 7 November Echo Hotel, and Dave, Mike 7 Alpha Victor Oscar. Any other 7s, please? G4 NRC, over. G4 NRC, no more 7s. Let's have 6s. Stations figure 6 and their call sign. Please go ahead. G4 NRC, over.
Golf 6 Papa Delta Echo. Chris C. Suffolk, in and out, please.
G4 NRC's got Chris, Golf 6 Papa Delta Echo, and you are in and out. Thank you, Chris. Any other 6s, please? G4 NRC, over. G4 NRC, nothing heard, so let's go for 5. Stations figure 5 at their call sign. Please go now. G4 NRC, over. G4 NRC, we still only have a couple of 5s on the DMR as a whole, so we'll go straight to 4s. Stations figure 4 in their call sign, please. G4 NRC, over.
G4 NRC, G4 Kilo Uniform Juliet, G4K UK, Trevor in Watford.
G4 and RC's got Trevor, G4 KUJ, who's also doing the logging for me today. Any other fours, please? G4 and RC, over. G4 and RC, nothing, so it's the threes. Stations figure 3 in that call sign, please go ahead. G4 and RC, over.
Golf 3 Victor, Echo Hotel, G3VH, Chris in Winchester. Good afternoon, Greg. No traffic, so in and out through me.
G4 and RC, good afternoon, Chris. Golf 3 Victor, Echo Hotel, copy you in and out. I'm sure you'll be listening for the church notices, though. Any other threes, please? G4 and RC, over. G4 and RC, no more threes, so it's the twos. Stations with figure 2 in that call sign, especially the intermediate twos. Please call now. G4 and RC, over. G4 and RC, second call for any stations with figure 2 in that call sign, including the intermediate twos. Please go ahead. G4 and RC, over. G4 and RC, nothing heard, so then it's the ones. Stations with figure 1 in that call sign, please go ahead. G4 and RC, over.
Golf Mike 1, X-Ray Echo Alpha, Peter in not at all sunny Aberdeen. No traffic, but I should be able to stay with you this time. Over.
G4 and RC with a smile. Acknowledges Peter, Golf Mike 1, X-Ray Echo Alpha, and sorry about the lack of sun in Aberdeen, Peter. Any other ones, please, for G4 and RC, over? G4 and RC, it's nothing, so now let's divide up the zeros in the usual manner. Let's have Mike 0 stations of any regional secondary identifier. Please go ahead now. This is G4 and RC, over.
Mike 0, Golf Uniform Yankee. Good afternoon, Greg. Mike 0, Juliet Sierra Alpha Alan. Good afternoon, Greg.
Mike 0, Whiskey X-Ray Golf, Shirley in Cornwall, in and out. Thank you, Greg.
Mike 0, India Tango Mike, Andy with Shirley. In and out. Thanks, Greg.
Mike 0, Juliet, Uniform Juliet. Mike, in and out. Thanks, Greg.
G4 and RC. Right, we've got Mike 0 Golf Uniform Yankee. Good afternoon, Guy. Mike 0 Juliet Sierra Alpha. Good afternoon, Alan. And then it's Mike 0 Whiskey X-Ray Golf Shirley, in and out. Mike 0 India Tango Mike, Andy, in and out. And Mike 0 Juliet Uniform Juliet. Mike, in and out. Got the feeling I might just have slipped a line there. Any other Mike 0 stations of any regional secondary identifier, please go ahead. G4 and RC, over.
Mike 0, Mike Zulu Foxtrot, Jason in Southampton.
G4RC. Good afternoon, Jason. Mike Zulu Foxtrot, and Alan M0JSA is very pleased to on because it means he's not going to be the last on the net, which is his usual place. Let's go down for the Golf Zero stations of any regional secondary identifier, please, over.
Golf Whiskey Zero, Juliet Lima X-Ray. Name is Andy, no traffic, so in and out this afternoon. Thank you, Greg. Over.
G4RC. Good afternoon, Andy. Golf Whiskey Zero, Juliet Lima X-Ray. Copied you in and out. Any other Golf Zero stations of any regional secondary identifier, please, over. G4RC. Any other United Kingdom stations, any other UK stations who have missed their turn on the net who wish to check in, please call now. G4RC, over. G4RC, there's a station blipped. Mike 7, Tango Juliet Echo. Were you checking into the net, over?
Sorry about that. I just keyed the mic. Good afternoon.
Seven Tango Juliet Echo. So, guess you're just going to be listening, Jason. Not correct, over?
Yes, sorry. Name's Jason. Just listening. Thank you.
G4RC, no problem at all. You're in the log anyway, but showing you as in and out. Okay, finally, any international liaison stations that Nord-Samband of Norway, are in Ireland, areas of Slovakia, any international emergency communication stations, please call in now. G4RC, over.
Oscar Mike 4, Echo India. Good afternoon, Greg and everyone. The name is Peter and the location is Slovakia. Over.
Echo India 5, India Echo Bravo. Here is Tom in Dublin. No traffic for me, Greg, so in and out.
Lima Alpha 6 India Mike, name is Hans, in and out.
G4RC, as the video caught me accidentally doubling with some of you, but all logged anyway. So Peter, Oscar Mike 4, Alpha Echo India, good to hear you, and good to talk to you in a few minutes. Tom Echo India 5, Echo India Echo Bravo, sorry, log sheet's wrong, I'm right. Echo India 5, India Echo Bravo, copied you in and out, Tom, good to hear you check in though. And Hans Lima Alpha 6, India Mike, got you as well. G4NRC, any other international liaison stations, please? G4NRC, over. G4NRC, nothing heard. Okay, good check-ins from everybody. Tom, you were showing Echo India 5, India Echo Bravo, just showing 2% loss on your check-in. G4KUJ's got a little bit of bit error rate according to the Brandmeister side of the bridge, slightly off frequency maybe. And Mike 7 Alpha Victor Oscar, 1% loss, but no problems at all in copying you. So, as usual, the net is being live streamed by Graham, G7 and the H, to YouTube. The live stream and recording will be available by searching Golf 7 November Echo Hotel on youtube.com. Graham's looked at the analytics of the videos, and you might expand on this later, but it does seem like many viewers only watch for the check-in and the initial notices, but not stick around to watch right to the end of the net. don't really want people missing out on the good information that comes from the rounds, so any comments from you either onto the YouTube channel, chat, or on the net now, whether or not you think the streaming net format is preferred, or maybe a summary video on maybe on Monday or Tuesday when we could collate something where we could capture the Friday news email as well as the Sunday content would be appreciated. Now, I did our exercise Lima in Cheshire on Friday. This is the National Power Loss exercise, and I know it doesn't really feel like winter's coming with storms and bad weather, but that potential is increasing. So has your group thought about how call-outs would be managed if the power and phone systems were down? We've got lots of options. There's APRS, listening watches, POXAG, JS8 call. Who's using what and why? And finally for this one, as the proud new owner of a solar power station who's found it makes a lot of RF noise on HF, anybody got any experiences with solar power stations, and if any are quieter than others, it would be appreciated. So, plenty to talk about, I hope. Let's start with Phil. Golf 8, Kilo Lima Charlie, G4 and RC, over.
G4 NRC from G8 KLC. Okay, we're working latest backwards. I have no great experience with solar power stations. I'm assuming you're thinking of the LiPo batteries, the USB outputs, mains outputs, and 12 volts or 13.8 volts, and can be charged from either the wall wart to the car or a solar panel. Tempted to buy one, but haven't done so far. But have no experience. Used on a solar panel chart for a controller to a smallish battery that ran the tower, and never found any great interference. But that was literally, I don't know, 15, 20 watts. It wasn't a very big panel, and it was a fair way down the garden. So that's the solar. Called out in case of power failure. Well, I'm pleased to admit the group is now probably a viable number. Once the latest registration goes through, I think it brings us to 5, which is gratifying. Contacting each other, nothing formal in place yet. A lot of infrastructure to go on how the group is going to run and such like. But I suspect de facto call on the local working channel would probably happen. That or mobile phones, because at the moment everybody in the group has a mobile phone. So provided we're called within the first 4 hours of the failure, we might actually respond. If it's much later than that, it might have to be a tap on the door from the blue light taxi brigade. But other than that, no formal plans in place. And yeah, it's not very sunny here either. It's not been a bad day, but it's not been awfully warm. So I think that's probably answered all the questions. Oh, yes. YouTube. Well, I'll probably need to see the numbers. But if the number of people watching is less than the number of people participating, and they are the same people, then I'm not sure it's actually worth the effort. But that's just old and me. G4 NRC in the group, G8 KLC, prepared to be shot down.
G8 KLC, G4 NRC, no problem. I think the camera might show me exercising my fingers after typing that lot in. Fine, yes, experience with the solar power stations. It seems that my EcoFlow unit has got a spectacularly noisy inverter. It drives the SDR in the HF radio to overflow, but it also hits the web SDR with its antenna down the garden. This is a known problem, albeit I only knew about it after I bought it. People have solved it with lots of ferrites. In some testing today, it hasn't shown any noise on solar charging, and I'm going to try the power charging a little later to see what circuitry's in there that causes noise, but it will be good to identify which are noisier than others. Okay, and the caller information, won't comment any further on that at the moment. And YouTube, I think I'll let Graham comment on the numbers and let him have a quick flap and panic to find the email he sent me with the data. But I think viewers exceed participants, and we don't know if the two sets overlap. Okay, next to Mike, Golf 8, Echo, Echo, Yankee, G4 and RC, over.
G4NRC and the group from G8EY. All good questions. Call out contact, well, we tend to work on, as you say, the local calling frequency. If there's anything that is turning into an obvious emergency, we ask people to at least listen out, or even drop a call to say that they are listening out, which is very useful to know that they're there. YouTube channel, well, I must admit I don't look at the YouTube channel when I'm actually on the net, because I find that my little brain can't cope with that. Never been good at dealing with hearing me somewhat later than I was saying something. Yeah, solar panels and battery systems like that. As you say, it is the inverters that causes the problem. Some of the cheaper Chinese ones that get fixed to people's roofs, some of them are quite bad. Some are better than others. I haven't done any noise measurements on my solar panel portable setups. But the interference problem does also occur with generators, especially if you're using the inverter style sine wave ones. They can be quite noisy on HF, and even up to 2 meters and 77s I've had interference from those. And apart from putting a large metal box in the cable with filtering and so on, the best way is to park the generators far away as you can, and ideally dig a trench to bury the cable from it, but that's not necessarily suitable. From G8EEY.
Golf 8, Echo, Echo, G4 and RC returning. Yes, thanks for the reminder about the inverter-style generators. It might be worth me having a look back through some old American magazines, but they did identify, I think it was a couple of particular Honda makes, which were really good and lower noise for working on HF. But it is the way of the world now that rather than having a big, heavy generator, something with an inverter that can run a bit lighter is more preferred. Okay, next to Graham. Hopefully he's had time to find his email with the data. G7 and E8, G4 and RC, over.
G4 NRC, G798. Yeah, good afternoon, Greg, and good afternoon to all on the net. First of all, I'll admit a failure in my part today. I use one radio for streaming the net, hooked into the PC, and going through OBS. And I normally come on the radio using a little Alinco. However, I must have left the Alinco turned on last week and haven't touched it for a week, and the battery's as flat as a pancake, so it's on charge now. So those of you watching on the stream, my audio is coming through a USB microphone linked into OBS, and I'm transmitting on the radio that is normally sat there listening. So there we go, bit of a failure on my part, not checking batteries and etc. So hold my hands up to that one. No, I didn't find the email, Greg, sorry. But last week's net got 28 views and 5 likes, which is great. And another milestone on YouTube for the G798 channel is that I can now send or put out posts as well as videos, which is quite good. Right, what else? Oh yeah, solar generators. So I did a quick test with the Jackery 500 today, and I've actually got the repeater running through it now. The DR1X repeater is plugged in via the power supply, and listening on an SDR SDR Play receiver, I didn't really find any noise. I'll do a proper test next week and see how that goes, and I'll probably even video it as well, actually. Oh. G7NEH. Yeah, sorry about that. I've timed out. So yeah, back to you, Greg. G4NRC G7NEH.
G7NEH G4NRC. Yeah, I'm not going to bother my head and try and get that email up myself at the moment. So understand on the stream only having one, the non-standard audio. Hey ho, last week's net was me running it mobile. I think every net has to have some learning experience. So Graham and I got our solar generators at slightly different times. If the Jackeries are the ones that are slightly more popular with the van lifers, but I went for the EcoFlow because it has a much bigger battery. That's my thought. So I've gone for capacity, and it's 19 kilos in weight, whereas I imagine Graham's Jackery 500 is slightly more portable. But interesting to see how they work out. Graham's already seen the spikes that mine put out across most of HF. Haven't tried for VHF interference though yet, thinking on earlier comments. So we will continue the inquiries and experimentation. But I do know I found a Dutch amateur who'd got one like mine, and it's just a massive lump of type 31 ferrite actually calmed it down and made it usable. Next today, Mike 7 Alpha Victor Oscar, who will hold me to account that I haven't set up the West Cheshire RAYNET meeting I should have done for next week, but he's going to find out that I'll be doing that later on this evening. M7AVO, G4NRC, over.
G4NRC, Mike 7 Alpha Victor Oscar. No, Greg, I wasn't going to hold you to account for that one, but now you've reminded me, I may as well. But no, it'll be good to have a meeting and get our heads together and discuss these things. I'm just looking at the moment, just checking there's nobody sat closely before I commit myself to spending any money. But EcoFlow have brought out a smaller version, very similar to Ground's Jackery, called the Pond. Was released on the 9th. This month's only been released this week, which gives 600 watts with up to 1,000 peak power if you wanted to put a big draw on it. For similar money, the 500 Jackery. So I was looking at that, and it is quite handy, portable, quite lightweight, only 2 or 3 kilograms. It's not a great deal. So I'm looking at that at the moment. After the video streaming, yeah, I'm easy. I do. It's on now. I'm watching it. But I must admit, I don't go back to it through the week, so it's only on. It's only on during the net. Back to you, Greg. Mike 7 Alpha Victor Oscar.
Mike 7 Alpha Victor Oscar, G4NRC. Yeah, I keep looking around for the pond. Well, when they have a theme for their names. So the river I keep finding, but not the pond. I'll have a closer look. Be interesting to see if it has the same inverter inside it, or slightly higher rated one. What you have just reminded me of, although you didn't realise it, was that I need to do some 3D printing to take a IEC socket, that's the kettle style socket I've got, which has got a load of RF filtering inside it. So I could make myself a extension lead of some description, which would have appropriate connections, just needs a proper shroud around it, and then I can plug it in and then see if I can have a slightly less lumpy RF filter than the ferrite. Okay, thanks Dave. Next to Trevor, Golf 4 Kilo Uniform Juliet, G4NRC.
G4NRC and the group, G4K UK. Good afternoon, Greg and everybody else. First observation is that the Brandmeister link is working, seems to be working both ways nicely this week. I think it was missing, I'm not sure whether it was last week or the week before. No experience on the setup. The main thing I've done this week is sort out my deteriorating transmit performance on QO100, which with the VSWR slowly increasing, and after a couple of storms, went up from 2 to 1 to about 7 or 8 to 1. So over the last couple of days, I've done some tests and concluded what was my original thought, that the cable between the inside of the house and the outside of the house where it goes onto the LDF 450 had either got a cable problem or a connector problem. Turns out to be a connector problem, which has got some water in it, despite being nicely wrapped up in all sorts of gungy tape. So I've made a new cable and everything's back to normal on transmit. Thinking about QO100 and data. I've been doing some research on that. Seems to me that the easiest option is probably FLDG, but there is another option that's been looked at, which is using VARA SAT, which is a satellite version of VARA. The only drawback of that is there only seems to be one mailbox in Italy, which links into WinLink. But my thoughts at the moment are to try to see if I can get FLDG working nicely with the satellite first. That's about it from me. Back to you, Greg, from G4KUJ.
KUJ, G4RC returning. Okay, always do your transmitter checks. Maybe that's next week's public service announcement. See who's checked their antenna SWRs recently, or do you keep any monitoring in your transmit systems? I wonder if the water got into the cable a little easier than usual, because I'm guessing microwave cable at that kind of frequency is more like semi-air spaced rather than a solid dielectric. So I wonder if that encouraged some, it's more like a pipe rather than a cable. But glad it's all sorted. WinLink, VARA, yes. You know, I think most people other than a small tribe in Borneo know, I'm not a fan of WinLink because it is a system which can turn people off. If people got hung up about Elon Musk turning off his satellite system to Ukraine, then the same can happen in WinLink. They can block users for any reason at any time. So I'm not a huge enthusiast of that. Point-to-point networks are great, and VARA SAT is indeed a possibility if it'll do point-to-point. My secondary whinge then is I need to figure out how to get VARA working on Linux, because it's determinedly a Windows-only chunk of software at the moment. But try FLDG, stir up some alternative activity. Let's challenge the norm, as it were. Okay, thanks, Trevor. Next, much north of the border, Golf Mike 1 X-Ray Echo Alpha, up to you, Peter, G4 and RC. Over.
GM1XCA. Good evening, all. Well, today has been as miserable as you can get. There's a lovely Scottish word describes our weather, a dreich. It just is been revolting all day. The mist never lifted in the morning. It lifted about a quarter of an hour ago, and it's dark now, so it doesn't really matter. That's my whinge on the weather. Well, it's in my mind. Call out in our group could be a problem because a lot of us are not in simplex range of each other, VHF-wise. The main repeater in this area, GN, is on a good hilltop site with diesel backup supply. Unfortunately, numerous blackouts last year proved that the diesel was about as reliable as a chocolate fire guard, but it's not our diesel, so we're not even sure actually if it's part of our contract with them, continuity of supply, but it certainly in practice doesn't work. The last time we had a power outage situation that we wanted to get in touch with folks, approximately a third of them we got in touch with by email. Slightly more than a third we never got in touch with, either because they were out of communication or they had run out of electricity at home and were either huddling in a room to keep warm away from the radio or had gone to visit friends with electricity. So that's a problem still to be solved. I've never looked at the Graham's YouTube system apart from one quick glance once, so I can't really comment on it. The idea of a place where people can go and find the latest news quite easily does appeal to me. And I can't remember any of the other questions. I have no experience of solar-powered battery inverter type thingies. So I think that's it from me, Greg. Back to the net. Over.
Mike 1, X-Ray Echo Alpha, G4 and RC. At least it didn't take the easy option there of saying you're in Aberdeen, so what's solar power? Which I thought you might have gone for, Peter. Yeah, understood on that one. Copied a bit of news broadcasters' appeal. That's why we keep it on the com list to talk about. I expected your response for call out because you have such a wide area, and the experience with diesel backup. Well, professionally, I think the statistic is meant to be that diesel will fail to start 1 in 39 times. So that's the rough guess of when your diesel generator does actually start up. But as our German colleagues have found out with their mesh networking put on main masts run by the national mast operator, they thought they got the benefit of emergency power from being on that mast and have been told no, they haven't. It's going to go just as dark as everything else that's not on the emergency list. So simplex or digipeaters and repeaters we do control and can look after the power of is possibly the way to think about it, or reaching down to HF, which is why I think the exercises Lima around the country will really get some good discussions going about how to do call-outs. Okay, next to Guy. Mike 0, Golf Uniform Yankee, G4 and RC, over.
G4 and RC and 0GY. Yes, good afternoon, Greg. Good afternoon, all. Yep, not been around on the net for the last couple of weeks. Been out at hockey pitches and so forth. So actually, I find the YouTube very useful because I can review the net and certainly the church notices and so forth is very useful. So a summary YouTube video and bypassing maybe the check-ins wouldn't go amiss, but I realise that's obviously time consuming to then slice and dice the videos, so not sure if the effort is warranting, but I certainly like the YouTube video. I think that's very useful when things are a bit tricky. As for solar panels, no experience yet. I'm still trying to figure out how to do solar panels on my property, and I am checking out at the moment a Bluetooth headset which I've managed to get and pair up with my Anytone 578, but it also seems to pair up and work rather well with my Yaesu FT5D. So that seems to be working out well for me at the moment. But I appreciate some signal value reports on the quality of the audio coming in to you guys. Certainly listening to you guys seems to be fine. Okay, and with that, I shall pass it back. So this is Mike Zero Golf Uniform Yankee, passing back to G4 NRC.
Golf 4 November Romeo Charlie, returning to Mike Zero Golf Uniform Yankee. Okay, well, yeah, having the YouTube as a catch-up method was one of the intentions behind it. I think what Graham and I think of is if we have events on and it's come to a head a little bit over autumn, if we have events on, then being able to run the net and run a stream, doing it whilst mobile is a challenge. If we'd been a little bit different last weekend, then Graham and I would both have been fighting for mobile phone bandwidth, hurtling down the M6, trying to do everything. So the thought is not necessarily to slice and dice the net down, but just use the scripts we've got and the feedback to type into the log, and then prepare something based around that. But we will see and think about it, and as the nights are getting longer, ideas have a tendency to take root. Your audio, I was going to say I'll leave to others to comment, but I'll leave it for them to shoot me down. I think it's sounding slightly muffled, but I'll see what other people say. Okay, next to Alan, Mike Zero, Juliet Sierra Alpha, G4 and RC, over.
Yeah, good afternoon, Greg. Good afternoon, everybody. My default is slightly muffled, so I apologise for that. Yeah, Gore was a bit muffled today. One or two have been, actually. The network has been holding up reasonably well. I haven't got any comments really on the YouTube, so I don't watch it, and the solar generators, because I haven't got one. And I don't know anybody who has. Call out under Parfait is interesting because we're just putting the finishing touches to a group handbook for East Suffolk, which does include a section on call-outs when there's no electricity, or possibly no electricity. So we have been thinking about that, and we've got a procedure in place that hasn't yet been tested. We are blessed, perhaps, with two local repeaters sitting on top of a hospital, so they have standby power. We've been assured that they will stay up if the electricity goes off for the hospital. So that gives us a help. But the fallback would be Simplex, VHF probably, and would be in a fairly compact group. We can get nearly everybody on Simplex, providing they know to go on it. So we're trying to cover the bases. We're looking at HF as a further fallback for those who can do it, probably using top band. With base loaded verticals of a suitable length to give us a bit more wide area coverage, albeit not HF DX, but HF local. So we have been giving that some thought. So it's been good. Apologise for not being on recently, been very busy. Been out today on an event, 7-mile run, 500 runners, half of the 7 checkpoints under control. Didn't go too badly. Except no one could hear our control station because they were badly sighted, and we had to fall back to an alternative. But it's all a learning curve, that's what we do it. Back to you, Greg. G4NRC, M0 Jazz Sound Group.
Zero Juliet Sierra Alpha, G4 and RC. Okay, I'm glad you've thought through the how to do a call out the power failure. When you said repeaters on a hospital, there was an example of that in London as well, where we thought it had the connection and then found it actually wasn't. But the only way you're ever really going to find out probably is if they have a power outage, or actually do a power down test and test the system. Interesting, your use of top band, and top band was the mobile band before 2 meters started getting equipment, so there's nothing that should really stop it happening. I'm still trying to get around to putting together a bunch of mobile vertical antennas grouped together as one, so I'd have a multi-band capability for top band up to 20. I might give that a try again, but it's usually difficult because people think about the band and go, it's too big to put antennas up for. But it could be useful, but I would also suggest JS8 Call or APRS, both of which have got the means of just looking for a keyword. And if it sees the keyword, then it'll do something about it, like ring a bell. So hold that thought. Right, we've got 2 stations left on the first round of the net. So it's Jason, then Peter, Mike 0, Mike Zulu Foxtrot, G for an RC over.
M0 MZF, good afternoon, Greg and everyone. First time on the Sunday net, so hello from Southampton. And just a brief comment on your audio there, Guy. Agree with Greg there, completely readable, but ever so slightly muffled. I'll just give it back to you there, Greg, to make sure what I'm getting in, because this is the first time that I've used this this Pi-Star hotspot and handheld in this combination. So am I fully readable? Back to you.
Mike 0, Mike Zulu Foxtrot, G for an RC. You certainly are, so carry on, Jason, over.
Yes, thank you very much, Greg. Okay, yes, so just some points that have come up there. Yes, the Southwest Hants RAYNET call-out will be on our local working frequency if the phone isn't in range. We're all really within VHF simplex range, so that shouldn't be too much of a problem. But a couple of our RAYNET members down here, including myself, are part of the South Hants repeater group, and we've got a close working relationship with them and, well, us. So we can also use any one of the 5 VHF UHF repeaters on top of our local tower block. So we should be okay. No comments, unfortunately, regarding solar panels and QRM, etc. But I have had some joy at home with the Golf Mike 3 Sierra Echo Kilo Clean Up Your Shack filter. So I'm not sure if that might be appropriate for generators and inverters and what have you. So yeah, regarding power loss and all the rest of it, recently down here we're working on an off-grid data communications project which we're calling SolNet for the Hampshire County Council Isle of Wight Local Resilience Forum, linking all the county and city councils together, fire and police headquarters, all that good stuff. I'll keep it brief, but this will provide a resilient, battery-backed-up IP network based around the modified Arden build that we've created for all the user services. And we're about to complete phase 1, connecting HCC Winchester to SCC down here on the Southampton docks. I'm coordinating much of that project, so if anyone would like any of the juicy details, please do ask. I'll stay around on the talk group after the net, and of course happy to receive any emails about the subject. So with that, I'll straight back at you, Greg. G4NRC, M0 MZF in the group.
Zero, Mike Zulu Foxtrot, G for an RC, and hopefully the camera didn't pick up too much of what I was just doing, but yeah, John Benson at the National AGM handed over the paper that was been put together for the off-grid data network, and it forms some of my reading while I'm on a train tomorrow, going where I need to go, because we do have quite a few mesh networks gathered around and still have an occasional idea, a bit like we've done with the DMR service, that if we had some form of central server and bridging between the meshes, then people would go even further in developing the system, just like we did when Guy set up the DMR server for RAYNET. That it brought a whole lot of people together from around the country, and it's really grown in a good way. Thank you for the reminder of the SEK Clean Up Your Shack filter. I shall go and have a look and a refresh for that one, but I've got a chunk of ferrite, I've got an IEC filter, I'll see what the SEK filter does as well, and have a bit of a further shootout. Okay, finally, and abroad, and hopefully still with us, to Peter of Slovakia, Oscar Mike 4, Alpha Echo India, OM4 AEI, G for an RC, over. Oscar Mike 4, Alpha Echo India, still with us, G for an RC, over. See nothing from Peter. I'll go back to his national coordinator because I was pleasantly surprised when Peter chimed in last week. I was going to ask Stan across in his country what the story was, because I know they don't have many DMR users. Okay, before I go and hit the second round, any other stations wanting to join the RAYNET-UK activity period on 23531? This is G4NRC, over. G4NRC, despite the blip, nobody's coming forward to join the net, so let's go for the second round. Thanks for answering the questions the first round. Just to let people know, so again, they can hold me to account, Phil. Next Committee of Management meeting is the 16th of December, and another edition of Checkpoint is imminent, I think is the politest way of putting it, from what Kathy reported at the last com. So if you've got any feedback for your ZCs, the 16th of December is the day they need to know it by, and hopefully you'll get a checkpoint landing in the next couple of weeks back with you. So, round for finals, see what thought processes that's all spawned. G8KLC, G4NRC, over.
Yeah, G4NRC, G8KLC. All very interesting. Might hold off on the solar power supply until a few more people have said, yeah, this one's rubbish or this one's not too bad. Was looking at the 500, I must admit. I think it was the 500 I was looking at. But got bogged down in reading reviews, and you read half a dozen reviews and it's wonderful, and then somebody reviews it and says it's the worst thing since sliced bread. Not really sure whether the review is from a competitor, or he got a Friday afternoon one, or he was just very unlucky. But I've left it for a while, and we'll see what happens. Thanks for the reminder on COM. I believe you had one last Friday. I think it was one on Friday. It was in the National Diary, but not as a separate news item, and that's absolutely fine. At least it's in the National Diary, which is good. I still suspect there's an awful lot of groups out here that don't put things into the National Diary. I am convinced we are much busier than anybody would ever know. I have no real understanding why people hide all the good work we do under a bushel. I mean, we certainly don't mention everything we used to do. Mainly the user service wouldn't appreciate it, and B, we might not want to be publicly associated with such things. But not everybody in the general public appreciate some of the things we help with. I think that was all fairly vague and veiled, but I think we do need to use that much more. And look forward to see the outcome of the 2-day maintenance. Hopefully a few more of these rerouting errors will disappear. Just had a look for zone coordinators. Got a ADO/ADB field error and failed to put it up, which wasn't a big problem, but it would be nice to know addresses of zone coordinators. Not that I have one, but there we go. Anyway, no more on that, and yes, I'll look forward to the next COM and a copy of the magazine. That will be interesting. G4NRC, G8KLC.
G8KLC, G4NRC. So one of the things I've got to write up is my attendance at the RSGB Spectrum Forum last weekend. And that same issue about putting items into diaries and raising awareness came up from a number of other communities, he says, trying to protect the innocent. I at least could say that from our estimates, only about 15% of groups actually report what they're doing, or put full reports in, even as an item in the diary, putting a full report in of how many people and how many hours. And that was being seized on by some other members of the forum against others, not us, because we were being honest, that you can't base spectrum usage purely off who's in a particular contest or who's got a particular award. And we do need to do better as a hobby as a whole of identifying how well and how often we are using the frequencies we've got, because they are getting challenged. So I've got to type up that meeting for COM. The whole thing, though, should be available on the RSGB website when Murray types up the minutes. So if you search Spectrum Forum on the RSGB, you'll see the machinations that take place. But I think, given the discussion, some of the papers might not have all the numbers put in them because of the story it told. Okay, thank you for coming on today. Talk to you soon. Next to Mike for a final. Golf 8, Echo Echo Yankee, G4 and RC, over.
G4 NRC and the group from G8EY. Well, some interesting stuff coming out of today. One thing that did cross my mind is that if you're really desperate and you need a means of charging batteries, remember that the good old traditional bike dynamo that rubs on the tyre at the back is not actually a dynamo, it is an alternator. And when I used to use a motorcycle lead-acid battery in the pannier to feed 12-volt lights, I charged it with a dynamo using a transformer, which was quite happy to produce about 15 volts to charge the lead-acid. When it comes to cables, I had a cable outside going to a dual bander for packet use, and I had a contractor round, and he managed to slice the outer PVC cover, not seriously, but within a short period of time, the water had got into the braid, and although the cable measured at DC, it had an awful SWR. So water just into the braid can have a problem. My main J-beam C5 collinear, which has been up top for over 40 years now, when I did all the connectors on that, I used adhesive-lined heat shrink over the connector and the cable entry, and I've not had a failure yet. I did discover that apparently self-amalgamating tape is not entirely waterproof or sunlight-proof, and that you need to double wrap with some PVC or other heat outdoor tape afterwards. You can't just rely on the self-amalgamating tape. From G8EY.
Golf 8, Echo Echo Yankee, G4 and RC gives me two reminders. One is that when I moved into my first house, I wondered why the TV signal wasn't very good. Pulled the cable at the back of the TV where I'd put it in, and the plug fell off and a whole load of water came out. So that was a rather damaged coax. Okay, on the adhesive line heat shrink being better than self-amalgamating, my experience with aerial riggers at work, and it's what I wouldn't do myself because I just hate the mess, was that any coax joints were covered with self-amalgamating tape, then PVC tape to provide the a more resilient covering, and then finally a copious greasy layer of that beast called Denso tape, the grease-lined or grease-impregnated fabric, and nothing tended to get through that. I've just never been a Denso tape fan, so usually reckon my stuff isn't going to be up for as long as some of the antennas we were doing for work. Okay, thanks for that, Mike. Good to hear you today. We'll progress on down the finals to Graham, G7NEH, G4 and RC, over.
Yeah, G7NEH returning. Yeah, okay, not a lot else to add from this end, Greg. And on the net today, we've had 11 total views, and there's 7 viewing at the moment, and 3 likes. So there we go. But yeah, thanks for doing the net, and we'll see you all next week. G4NRC, G7NH.
So Graham, possibly as a final at the very end. Next down today, Mike 7 Alpha Victor Oscar, G4NRC, over.
G4NRC, Mike 7 Alpha Victor Oscar. Yeah, don't know where Graham's disappeared to. The stream is still up and running, but 15 minutes behind on the time clock for some reason. I don't know why. Yeah, just to correct off my last over, it is the EcoFlow River 2 Max, not Pond. I don't know where Pond came from. River is the correct portable EcoFlow there, Greg. That's what we're looking at. Nothing more to add here. And my battery is about to go dead, so I just wanted to get it right down flat before I got it in the charger. Hand it back to yourself, and hopefully catch up very soon. Mike 7 Alpha Victor Oscar.
G4NRC returning. Okay, Dave. Yeah, thanks for the clarification, because they had got one called the River, which has been out for a while, but if there's the River 2, then that's fine. I shall go hunting for that one as well. Sounds like we've got some good ideas, though, for how we can tame its noisiness if it is something systemic with that manufacturer. Okay, next to Trevor, G4KUJ, G4NRC, over.
G4, I see in the group, G4KUJ replying. Well, okay, very interesting comments from all round. And I certainly agree with Mike's comments about heat shrink with the glue on. That certainly works very well. As far as Guy's audio is concerned, certainly readable, but not as slightly restricted in bandwidth, I think, particularly at the top end, and not nearly as crisp as we're used to hearing, but certainly there wouldn't be any problem with readability. So that's my comment on that. The coax that I had to replace was actually Hyperflex 5, which has actually got a solid dielectric, and then a copper foil, and then a braid. And there's certainly some water around the braid entry. And I think somehow the cable may have been bent with a very small radius, which may have damaged the cable a bit. It tested out on the test equipment at sort of 2 meters in UHF, but at 2.4 gigs, it wasn't at all happy. Anyway, I need to disappear, Greg, so I'll leave you with finishing off the log if that's okay. I've got some visitors who've just popped in who I need to have some words with before they disappear. G4NRC in the group, G4KUJ.
G4KUJ, G4NRC, yeah, no problem. I'll pick up the rest of the log, and yes, this is the unnatural consequence of me not having a basketball game on a Sunday, and that's going to be the way it is for the remainder of the month. So I'm not feeling quite so rushed today. Sorry, everybody. Okay, 7-3, Trevor, next to Peter for a final. Golf Mike 1, X-Ray Echo Alpha, G4NRC, over.
Golf Mike 1 X-Ray Alpha to the group. Yes, your mention of Denso tape brought back memory from when I used to work in the steelworks, where they put it on everything. Wrap junction boxes in it and all sorts. Horribly revolting stuff to work with, but very effective. Don't really think I've got any other comments on the conversation. It's been quite an interesting one to listen to, and As you may gather, I'm not on call today, so I've actually managed to listen to everything. And with that, I'll say 73s to everybody that's left, and hopefully hear you next week. GM1XCA, over.
Echo Alpha. Let's try that one again. Golf Mike 1 X-ray Echo Alpha, G4 and RC. Yes, at some point we must get Graham to show my typing into the log at the same time, because I think I've summarised you as density tape used and was effective if messy. I think that is an understatement given my experience of the stuff, but it does do its job. Okay, thanks Peter. Surprised you've actually got through the whole net without the cat being after food or anything, so well done on that, and hopefully talk to you next week. Right Guy, hopefully we haven't shattered illusions about your headset, or maybe you've adjusted the microphone position. I have noticed with people at work who moved away from headset microphones on wires to what I've been cruelly calling Madonna mics, that the boom is not as long as the full-size headset, so it's led to some difficult audio from some people at work with that style. And I don't think it's the Bluetooth, it's just the physical layout of the headset. Mike 0, Golf Uniform Yankee, G4 and RC, over.
G4 ARC M0 GY. Yeah, thanks everybody for feedback on the volume on the mic. So this headset is, how to describe it, it's wraps around the back of the ear and there is no boom on it, so the microphone is at the base of my ear. If anybody remembers the old Jabra headsets, it's a bit styled like that. Took long enough to try and find one that would actually pair up with the Yaesu radio. This one's identified itself as an A8, and it seems that those are about the only ones that the Yaesu radios will play with. So yeah, I had a nice, beautiful headset, but it would not pair up with the Yaesu in any way, shape or form. But this one's the first that has. I mean, the amount of returns I've done to Amazon to try and find a headset that actually does. This one was just over £20, so £23 something, as a cheap headset, just to try. And other than muffled loss, and I can understand where that's coming from, given that it's quite away from my mouth. That's not totally surprising. Yes, I had looked at some of the boom ones, and I was quite tempted for some of them. But again, I couldn't get one that would pair with the Yaesu successfully. So it doesn't seem that all the modern ones that are out there work with the Yaesu radio quite so well. So I think we'll probably have to stick with this one and deal with muffled voice instead of crisp, clear audio all the time. But hopefully on activities on our log and so forth, it could be sufficient. Anyway, with that, I shall say thank you very much for running the net, Greg, and everybody else, 73s, and I'll speak to you later. This is Mike 0, Golf Uniform Yankee. Clear.
And I'll see returning. Yeah, okay, Guy. Hopefully I'm going to have less hassle for the next couple of weeks. I can carry on those conversations about resilience for the DMR servers. It's a shame that free option I found wasn't meaty enough to do what we needed to do. Okay, thanks for that. Talk to you soon. Next to Alan, Mike 0, Juliet Sierra Alpha, G4 and RC, over.
Yeah, M0, so returning. It's nice to not be the last one on the net this week, so thank you, Jason, M0MZF, for coming up as well. It's very good of you. Particularly lost Peter for AEI. Nothing else much to add apart from what are these solar battery generator things you're talking about, because I've never heard the term before. I might do a bit of digging around and seeing what rubbish there is and what excellent devices there are available. To fitting some kind of need I don't doubt. Hopefully everyone will stay well for the next week, and best 73 to you all. Back to you, Greg. Thank you for running the net. G4 NRC, M0 JSA, Suffolk.
RC returning to M0JSA. Oh, how do I describe them without offending somebody's sales department? I think Phil and Mike probably had it sorted earlier. So these are generally nice boxes which contain a lot of lithium cells of anything from 500 watt hours, 1000 watt hours or more. And the reason they get called solar generators is that they generally have an inverter in, so they will provide 240 volt sine wave, not just the battery voltage as DC, which is what we would normally have used in RAYNET beforehand. And they have the capability of being fed with solar panels. So my particular combo, funded by my company's long service award, is 400 watts of solar panel and say a box which is capable of producing up to 1.8 kilowatts of 240 volts for a very short time, driven off its big battery. So the solar generator is really, as described earlier, a solar panel, a solar charger, a big lithium battery, and then an inverter going after that. So that's it. They are beloved of the van life and camping community because it does mean they can keep all their phones and computers and everything else charged while they're out in the wilderness. So they're useful because it brings everything together into one nice package rather than some of the ones we see out there where safety is a secondary consideration to making the voltage, I think. So that's it. Have a nice browse, but from the discussion, be worth it if we can get some feedback from people, probably on a wider area of what's good for radio and what isn't quite so good. Okay, potentially last, and I told you who's going to love it, Jason. He's not the last, but over to you for what might be a final, but then I'll chase the strays who've dropped off the net after that. Mike Zero, Mike Zulu Foxtrot to G for an RC over.
G4 NRC M0MZF for a final, finally. Yeah, good to meet you all this afternoon on the net, and I'll be dropping in again from time to time if I'm welcome to give you some updates as well on our Solnet project. Interesting comments regarding waterproofing antennas, of course, and I completely agree with the Denso tape over the top of everything. Certainly seems to do the job. I'd be very interested to know some more details about other resilient data communications projects that people are up to. So, Greg, perhaps if you could sort of fire me off something about how I can find all these things, I'm always be interested. So, with that, 7-3 all stations, and I imagine I'll catch you next week or at some point soon on the net. G4 NRC, M0MZF. Going to be monitoring afterwards, just in case anyone wants to have an natter.
G4 NRC, of course, you're always welcome, like any RAYNET-UK member is, or our international partners, to chip in. So, yep, I will find your details, drop you a note. It did also come out at the AGM that somebody wanted more information, and we are effectively back in those DMR days of lots of people are doing it, but not necessarily talking to each other. I've got a test bed here, Graham 798 tonight. I've got cunning plans of the technical team, but I've got some Arden low power nodes just working around the house because it's driving the firmware and getting the IP addressing that seems to matter more than DRF sometimes, and then linking that to NPR70 modems for a wider area coverage. But just to get some kind of jump start, I was going to get a link across to the Northeast Data Network, NetNet, and then I could at least access a wider network. So even if we just started bridging or tunneling to each other, would be useful. And also noted that you're using a modified Arden build, so we'll ask you separately what the modifications are. Right, let's just check for the stations who didn't respond when called. So we'll go Graham first, G7NEH, G4 and RC, over.
G4NRC, G7NH. Yeah, okay, Greg. I don't know what happened there on the last over. Those that were watching the stream would have heard it fine. It just didn't come over the air for some reason. Right, so all I said was thanks for doing the net, obviously, today. And in total, we've had 11 views and we were up to 7 viewing at once at one time. We just dropped down to 3 now, looking at the analytics dashboard. So there we go. Nothing further to add. G4NRC, G7NH.
G4 and RC, yeah, he weren't showing up on either dashboard, RAYNET-UK or Brandmeister, so yeah, no idea why the comms was black holes, Graham, but at least we know you're still there, and thanks for doing the stream today. Final call then, see if you're still with us. Peter, Oscar Mike 4, Alpha Echo India. Oscar Mike 4, Alpha Echo India, G4 and RC, over. For an LC, nothing heard. So yeah, I'll be getting back to Stan, his national coordinator, and see how we can get them woven a little tighter into the rest of the region. Okay, so I will thank everybody for taking time out of their schedules to participate in this afternoon's net. It's been nice not to be rushed for time this week. Hopefully I've got it out of my system and we can get back to a regular length next week. Be careful, have a good week, and until next Sunday afternoon at 1600 hours local time, I'll now close the RAYNET-UK weekly activity net and return the talk groups to an open net rather than a directed net. 730, this is G4NRC now closing and reverting to my normal call.